My name is Dov Barron. I'm the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. I was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. I am a consultant and a strategist for individuals and organizations in helping them to become not only more authentic but more effective at retaining their top talent. So I'm going to jump right into this with a subject that I think is about as taboo as you can possibly get. What I mean by that is this is not something that most leaders will tell you about leadership. It's not something that most people who hire for leadership will tell you about it. It's something that most leaders won't even discuss amongst themselves. And that is, well, I won't tell you what it is yet. We'll get into it in a minute. I just want to give you an example. First, as many of you know, in our work, we do a lot of work with families. And what I mean by families, multi-generational businesses that are families. So, you know, maybe granddad started the business, or grandma, great-grandma, whatever it might be, and now they're in the third, fourth, fifth, whatever generation it might be. And we were working with a family business recently, and in the experience of working with that business, I should tell you that the person at the top, meaning the person who is in the present stance of leadership, works side by side with the next gen leader, meaning the person who would succeed into the business, who would be the next person to take over. They work side by side. Now, the person who is presently running the show, if you will, is in his 60s. His son is in his 40s. And, you know, there will come a point, a natural point, where there will be, or should be, a succession. Meaning that son should take over from father, provided son is, of course, qualified to do so. So that seems like a pretty normal, natural transition, right? Well, here's what happens. When they are together, and when I mean together, I mean as father and son, they're wonderful. I mean, I watch them interact with each other, and there's such an amazing amount of love between the two of them. They genuinely, deeply care about each other. They treat each other with playfulness and compassion and understanding, and they are both very loving people. I mean, I actually watch the amount of emotional compassion and connection and care they have for each other. It's quite beautiful to be around. However, we work with the executive team, as we always do. We work with the executive team, and sometimes those are also other family members. We work with the executive team, and so we want to know what the feedback is from the executive team about what it's like to work with these guys. And you, I'm sure, would be fascinated to hear that these two guys who deeply love each other, who are extremely loving as a father and son, are just about at each other's throats when it comes to business. So what is going on? What is it really all about? Why do these two people who love each other, who treat each other very well as a father and son, treat each other so horribly when it comes to the work environment? When they have to work side by side, it all goes to shit very quickly. Why is that? Now, here's the thing about it, is that many of the people on the executive board, for the people who are the seniors who surround them, they've seen this deterioration over time. It's not new. It has gotten worse over time. Furthermore, it's not only got worse over time, but now something else is happening. What that is that negative, I would use the term violent, emotionally violent, verbally violent relationship that goes on in the workplace is now beginning to poison the professional relationship. It's now beginning, the professional relationship is now beginning to poison, the personal relationship. And what's more is that the team, the executive team who surrounds these people, are noticing it. And of course, they're living inside of this very hostile environment for a workspace. And, you know, I don't believe for a second that either of them really knew how close they have been to losing their very best people because of the quality or lack of quality of the relationship of the father and son. So, of course, we're brought in because we do amazing work with these kinds of families, because we actually understand the family dynamic piece as well as the leadership piece. And putting those two things together makes a tremendous difference, because it allows people to see what's really going on with the other person and develop a level of compassion and understanding that has been really so not only lost but missed. So we help them with this, and you know, we see it's very exciting for us. Let's just put it that way. It's very exciting for us to see, because these things are, I mean, you can have these incredibly successful companies who are doing extremely well, and this kind of dynamic, it's like it puts a foot on the brake while the other foot is on the accelerator. It stops things in motion. It stops things from really happening. It stops things from really accelerating in the way that they're actually possible or capable of. And so as a result, when we fix that problem, I mean, the whole business takes off like a rocket ship. It completely turbocharges the quality of the relationship. It's very, very powerful. So here's the taboo subject, as I said, that so few will talk about. When I say so few leaders will speak about it, and so few people who are in leadership roles or stepping into the leadership roles will speak about. And I'm going to bring it up here, and I realize that this, as I said, is a taboo subject, and I realize that some of you are going to be watching this and going, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this. And some of you are going to be going, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this for a completely different reason. Some of you are going to be going, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this. It's rude, it's disrespectful, it's, you know, whatever it is that you've got, you know, you put the layer on it that makes it not okay to talk about. And some of you are going to be saying, oh my God, I can't believe he's saying this, because I've always suspected this. I've kind of always thought that this might be the case. And now finally somebody is actually saying it. So what is it? It's this. In the example I gave you with the father and son, father is in his 60s, son is in his 40s. The taboo statement, the thing to really take a look at is this. How old are you? How old are you? Not your age, but how old are you in your behavior? See, here's what most people will never tell you when it comes to leadership. And it's this. We have two ages. You have the age that you are chronologically. You know, you celebrated your 60th, your 65th, your 70th, your 50th, your whatever birthday, your 20th. Doesn't matter. You celebrated that birthday. And that's great. So officially, that is your age. You are whatever age you celebrated at your last birthday. But that's only one of your ages. That's what we call your chronological age. That is, you know, times around the sun, if you will. Right? That is, it's just, that's your age in years, in chronology. But here's the thing that I really want you to grasp, is that your emotional age can be vastly different than your chronological age. Those two can be extremely different things. Now, some people are going to feel very insulted by this, and I don't mean it as any kind of an insult. I do it as an awakening to what it takes to be a true, absolute, authentic leader who can really deliver. And it's this. I'm going to ask you to be truly honest with yourself for a moment and just stop. And I want you to be, again, really honest, and I want you to think about things in your life that were traumatic. We've all had them, so let's not pretend that we didn't get them. Every one of us has had situations that were pretty traumatic for us. Now, let me be clear here, because I think this is a vitally important piece that often gets missed, is traumatic is not in the context of another. meaning it is not measured against somebody else's trauma, it is only measured against your own trauma. What do I mean by that? Well, very often people will say, well, you know, this happened, but it's no big deal. I mean, after all, I wasn't raped, or after all, nobody tried to kill me. You know, it's like as if that's the measure for trauma. That is not the measure for trauma. That's the measure for trauma that happened to, but it's certainly not the measure for trauma for people it didn't happen to. Trauma is trauma. What I mean by that is if it was traumatic to you, then it's traumatic. So if you came home one day and your mom didn't have your milk and cookies ready, and you usually had milk and cookies ready, you may have turned that into a trauma. Now, when I say may have turned it into, please understand, it probably was not a cognitive, conscious process of going, oh, yeah, this is traumatic. I'm not saying that for a second. I'm saying that your mind may have actually made it a trauma. And so anything in your life that felt traumatic to you, whatever that was, I want you to think about traumas that took place in your life. Whatever they were. Again, by your own evaluation. What was a situation that created trauma for you? Now, I'll give you another way of understanding trauma. Let's imagine that Billy comes home from school every day at 3:30. And when he comes home, his mom gives him cookies and milk. And she asks him how his day was. How was your day, love? How was your day today, son? How was school? What did you learn today? And spends a lot of time with him and finds out about his day and is really excited to hear about all the things that went on in Billy's life. And this is wonderful for Billy. He feels so good to know that his mom deeply cares about him. Now Johnny, on the other hand, who goes to school with Billy, he comes home, and when he comes home from school, his mom is an alcoholic. And when he comes home from school, his mom is usually drunk as a skunk, in a terrible mood, usually screams at him, often slaps him, and sends him to his room. So Billy comes home, he gets cookies and a greeting and caring. Johnny comes home, and he gets a slap, and he gets screamed at. Now this goes on for years. What is normal to each of those boys? Well, for Billy, what is normal is the cookies and the caring and the love. What is normal for Johnny? Well, normal is whatever you grew up with. So normal is, for Johnny, is the screaming, the shouting, the slapping, and the negative commentary. These are just what we get used to, what we normal. Normal is whatever you get used to. So therefore, let me ask you this question and see if you can grasp this for a moment. Understanding those two situations and understanding that both of those things are normal for that individual, here's the question. What is trauma? Remember, it's not necessarily a rape or somebody trying to kill you or whatever it might be. What is trauma? Well, the answer is, at a psychological level, trauma is anything that abruptly interrupts your normal. Anything that comes at you that is not part of your normal can feel, not is, but can feel, can be perceived as traumatic. So therefore, if Billy comes home and his mom does not have the cookies and the compliments ready for him, but instead he comes home and she's drunk and screams at him, that's a trauma. Now Johnny comes home and instead of getting a drunk mom who screams at him, he gets a mom who's maybe been in rehab and he didn't even know, and she's cleaned up her act, and instead, when he walks through the door, instead of getting the slap and the criticism, he gets cookies and milk and how was your day, honey? That's a trauma for him. Trauma is anything that abruptly interrupts your normal. Does this make sense to you? I hope it does. Now, let's put this back in the context of leadership for a moment. Trauma doesn't go away. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. You have two minds, a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. And that unconscious mind has no chronology, has no clock. So what happens is anything that comes up that triggers that sense of a traumatic situation, anything that triggers you to feel threatened in some way, because that's what trauma does to us. It makes us threatened, makes us feel like our reality is threatened. Anytime that something takes place that makes us feel threatened, we remove ourselves back into that space of feeling traumatized. Because we've had to create a coping mechanism. So little Billy and Johnny, when they went through whatever their experience was, when they went through that, they had to create, not consciously, but mostly unconsciously, a coping mechanism for how to deal with this trauma, whatever the trauma was for that person. That becomes a default situation. That becomes a default of how they deal with trauma, whatever it was. Now, of course, we've all gone through many traumas. Some feel very severe, some feel less severe, but they're all traumas. And each time we've developed a coping mechanism. Sometimes we've compounded the same coping mechanism over and over, and sometimes we've created different ones for different situations. But here's the thing, anytime you feel traumatized, you as an adult, you go back all the way into your history and you pull the coping mechanism that seems the most appropriate to the situation that has created the new trauma, that creates the new, quote, threat. Does it make sense? I hope so. So as a leader, what you've got to understand is the people you are leading are even though they may be highly competent, 30, 25, 35, 45, 55, 65-year-old adults, that's their chronological age. But under stress, we regress. I'm going to say that for you again. Under stress, we regress. It doesn't mean we're stupid. It doesn't mean we're wrong. It doesn't mean we're bad. It means under stress, we regress. We go back to dealing with trauma in the way that we know how to deal with it. We simply use the strategies that we developed very early on. Those strategies may have been excellent strategies. They may have been superb strategies for you when you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever the age group you were when you were originally felt the trauma. Now, please understand, you might go, but I wasn't traumatized. Of course you were. We all were. But you may not remember it. And the reason you might not remember it is because you may have categorized trauma as this big deal, as I said, using the example of rape or attempted murder or something that felt so horrendous or seemed so horrendous that you can go, oh, I'm justified in feeling like I'm traumatized by that. But that's not how trauma works, not at all. Trauma is extremely personal. Whatever it was for you that created that trauma, remember that abrupt interruption of whatever was part of your normal. Is this making sense? I really hope it is, because it helps you to understand that when you're leading people, you're not always leading an adult. You may be leading somebody who is a highly accomplished, highly academic, highly talented, highly skilled, maybe even chronologically mature, but if they're feeling that stress, they're going to have coping mechanisms for that, and the coping mechanisms for that are going to be whatever they learned in trauma years and years and years before. And they may not, and this is what's key for you to grasp, they may have no idea they're doing it. They may have no concept that they're doing it. They might have a little bit of a concept later, but at the time they may not. Now, here's where it gets really taboo. I talked about the multi-generational family business situation, but here's what you need to know. Just because the senior leader, meaning dad, granddad, grandmother, mother, matriarch, patriarch of the family business is in place and has certainly a great deal more chronology, meaning age, they have more years than the person who's coming up next. They may have a heck of a lot more experience than the person coming up next. That next generation person may trigger that response that is a traumatic response, which is a coping mechanism that allows them to feel safe. And so as a result, that person may behave like they're 10, 12, 16 years old, may behave like they're 5 years old in those situations. What can you do with this? Well, number one, you can have a heck of a lot more compassion for yourself. If you get into a situation and you come out of it and you shake your head and you go, I don't know why I did that. Why would I behave in such a way that's so not like me? I'm usually level-headed, I'm mature, I'm a great leader. Why would I behave in such a crappy way? That's why. So take out your pen, take out your paper, and by the way, writing it by hand in a journal is always more useful. It allows you to access different parts of the brain that typing doesn't. But taking the time to write in your journal about how you behaved and then asking the question, what does this remind me of? Will give you powerful, powerful insights and let you see what is not healed. Because as I said, the unconscious mind has no clock. It has no chronology. It has no clock. So it operates as if everything's going on right now, meaning it doesn't matter whether you're 6 or you're 60, the response is pretty much the same until you become aware, and then from that awareness you can develop the emotional intelligence to deal with it in a different way. How can you use this when dealing with others? Well, you can take a look at somebody and notice that when they shut down, for instance, or get screaming mad, or whatever their response is that's a survival response, is to look at that somehow you've triggered trauma. Now, of course, you may have had no inclination to do that. You may have had no intention to traumatize them or trigger trauma. Of course not. Nobody's suggesting that for a moment. But that is still their response. And you can have a heck of a lot of compassion for that. And in that state, you can notice what's going on. You can change your vocal tonality. You can make sure that you're not directing in an aggressive way towards somebody, but rather move to a questioning and a compassionate questioning of that other person. Not what's going on with you, but rather, can you tell me what's happening for you right now? Can you tell me what I may have done or said that seemed to have brought something up? Now they may get defensive, of course, and you must remain in that compassionate, emotionally intelligent state. So that, my friends, is a really powerful, powerful insight for you to have in leadership. And as I said, I know for sure, because we deal with this all the time in our work, dealing with multi-generational family businesses and dealing with leaders in general, is to understand that the person's age may have nothing to do with their emotional maturity. And please understand there's a great deal of difference between emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. Emotional intelligence is something you apply, but emotional maturity is something that gets triggered. So you can be extremely emotionally mature, but if something triggers you, you may become you can be very emotionally intelligent, but if you get triggered, you may find yourself becoming very emotionally immature. That's when you need some help. That's when you work with people like us who understand the family dynamic as well as the leadership dynamics. So, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com. I truly hope that this has been valuable to you and that you will put it to work and put it to use. And if you have questions or you have your need for insights, you want to find out more about this, find out more about what it is that we do in my company, you can simply go to fullmontyleadership.com. You can reach out to me through all the other venues here on Facebook, Dov Baron Leadership, on YouTube, Dov Baron Full Monty Leadership, on LinkedIn, Dov Baron on LinkedIn, and on Twitter at the Dov Baron. And of course, you can find that my writings on Entrepreneur Magazine, entrepreneur.com, on CEO World, and a bunch of other great outlets. I'm here to serve you and help you, and make sure that you check out the Leadership and Loyalty show, which of course is on iTunes as well. So until next time, this is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about your level of emotional maturity, not just your emotional intelligence. Till next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.